Today I'd like to show you the Marvin Ultimate Glider. So let's get to it. One of the first things I'd like to do is show you how to get a window that won't unlock. You move the handle and it doesn't unlock. So I'm going to show you how to release these latches. So if you got one of these that won't unlock, you may want to get an old hotel credit card so we can get behind that latch and cut it like so. And oftentimes I'll just take a putty knife and force it between here. And you can kind of move these two apart and get that behind that latch like that. And then now we can move on to the top latch. Okay, with our card still at the bottom, you can take this putty knife, kind of move these apart a little bit, and then stick that behind this little latch here like that. And then you can push your window open just like that. With the window open, now we can remove the active sash. We can do that by moving this little hook down like here, or this little latch, and then sliding this out just like this and open the window all the way. Okay, with this all the way over like this, the sash can now come out just like that. So to give you a better visual, what we did earlier by opening the window by using this, we actually put the putty knife in here to separate, to make room for this. So this card will actually get in here like this, and of course that pushes that down, and then you can slide that in place while we put the other one here to push that down. If you got an unresponsive handle, more likely the cable had come undone. So let me show you how to fix that. Not all the gliders have the screws in this piece here. This one does. There was a design change on this interlock. The older, the first generation, actually you had to take your putty knife and roll this off this way and that way to get it off. On these newer ones, you can just actually just gently pull this off. But if you have the older ones, you're going to have to go like this and then roll it off that way. And that'll expose you to the whole mechanism here. By this time you'll see if the cable comes detached, if it comes from here or here. If you see a lot of paint in this mechanism, paint or stain is going to cause these things not to work at all. So we'll go ahead and take one out to give you a better visual. These are a handed part, so you have to specify what handing you have if you have to order replacements. And it just comes out just like that. So we'll go ahead and take this one off. Okay, this cable comes around here like that. So since these cables go in here just like that, every once in a while I'll get one where this may be damaged here and this cable will keep coming out. So I'm going to show you a fix that I do where I actually run this cable behind here so it can never come out. So I want to run the cable behind here, and to do that I'm going to have to end up cutting this here. And I know this seems pretty evasive, but it'll work, and I haven't had one fail yet, so be very careful. All right, I know that's not pretty, but kind of in a tight spot here. So what I'll end up doing is I'll separate this lock. As you can see, there's a little stud in there, and we want this to come undone from that. Okay, now I can slide that out, and I could run this cable behind here like that and push this back into place carefully. You may have to fiddle with it like that. So now we got to do the same for the top lock. We'll slide this up. Easier said than done. Most of you may want to just order a new lock, but if you're in a pinch and when you can't replace this lock, then you're going to want to go ahead and do this. And as you saw, a little part just fell out. That needs to go back in there. Just like that. And now when you put this back in here, because the pocket that it goes into is pretty tight, this should never come undone. So we have it like this. I like to go ahead and use some tri-flow in there. Kind of work that in. And if you want to do the same thing with this one, you can. If not, we can just put it back in there just the way it was. Just like that. In order to change this lockout, there's a couple screws that need to be accessed. So we just take a utility knife and we'll cut this little vinyl piece back here. Be very careful when working with sharp objects, obviously. You can pull that out and that'll expose you to these two screws. You just take these two screws out. Do it. There you have it. That's how you change out the lock. And then when you replace this cable, it goes back in here just like that. Okay, so when redoing this lock, you need to go in order. You can't go in reverse order, or if you do, it's going to be a little challenging for you. But I find it best for me to start at the lock in first. And all these cables are a precise length. So then we can check the operation before we screw it in. Perfect. There you go, just like new. Now we can go ahead and put on the interlock. It just pushes on, just make sure it seats all the way. And we'll go ahead and put all the screws back in. Just like that. Before I put the sash back in, I'm going to go ahead and take some pledge, some furniture polish, spray it on a paper towel. And this will really help with the operation of the window. So make sure to use a lot of it. Wipe all the tracks down. Any weather stripping. And then take and fold it. And there's a little groove up here that this slides in. You want to break all that friction down. And be sure to wipe the top of the sash and also the bottom where these glide on. There's these little pads that these slide on, and if you get any dirt on there, they're not going to slide too well. So we'll go ahead and wipe those down. Just like that. Wow, that works fantastic. Let's say if you have a window that's installed at a square and it's really racked bad, and when you go to lock it, it won't latch. I mean, you really have to force it over in order for it to lock. This could actually be moved this way to allow the window so it doesn't have to close as much if you got a window that's at a square, and it will allow it to lock. So let's go ahead and let me show you how to do that. So first we can go ahead and, like earlier in the video, how to take that out of the way and remove the sash. So we're going to use this as a reference point. See how it's nice and flush here, and see how this keeper comes out this way. We're going to go ahead and take these out, and we're going to move this keeper so this edge lines up with this edge. Now we're going to take some doweling. You may want to put some glue on this. This is just some 1/8" doweling, and you're going to put it in there. And if it's sticking out, just do that. Now we can go ahead and put that back up so that lines up like that. And we're going to go ahead and mark our new hole here in here, and then we're going to drill a little pilot hole. Okay, now that we got that little hole there, we'll go ahead and do a little. We put that doweling in there, that way the screw doesn't walk over. Okay, we can go ahead and put our screws back in. There you go, it's flush on this side and it sticks up there, and that should give us the room that you need to allow your window to lock. Go ahead and just put our sash back in. And there you go, that'll allow it to lock. But since this window's square, there is some slop here. So obviously with the one that may be installed at a square, when you go to do that, it should be tight. Now I want to show you how to replace the stationary sash. First, we can go ahead and start by removing the screen. Now we can remove this seal cover. Sometimes you can just take a little putty knife like that and take it out. There's a little lip here that this grips on the exterior, and then this connecting barb here fits in this curve here. Now it's time to remove this head jam exterior parting stop. Same thing, it should pop right out of there, just like that. Same thing, we got a little friction fit that fits in this jam liner here. We can go ahead and move this out of the way so we can remove this wood piece here. You can just take a screwdriver behind it here and gently pop it out. Or if that doesn't work, you can use a putty knife between here and go down that way. We got to be pretty careful with this because you can actually damage the wood here, or it could break, so just be careful with it. Now we can remove this bracket. On bigger windows, there's going to be a bracket like this in top and bottom, so we can go ahead and remove the screws. Now we can remove the bracket. Now on some of these, there's going to be a bracket down here as well. This particular model doesn't have it, so we don't need to worry about it on this one, but if it's there, please remove it. Okay, now we can remove the sash. Just make sure this is all the way up this way. You should be able to move it that way. And then inside, you may have to take a little putty knife up here to compress your weather stripping, and we just take it straight out, just like that. When you get your replacement sash, be sure to put this little thing on here. That goes in here to help keep it lined up when you put everything together. And just take the bottom of this and set it on here in reverse order. Just like that, and screw it back together. Now I'm going to show you how to replace the sill track. To replace this track, let's take this cover off here. Comes out just like that. Okay, now there's a couple screws here. We need to remove these screws. Okay, let's go ahead and remove this. There is some silicone under it. You should be able just to constant steady pressure. Let that silicone tear. You can hear it. Just like that. Okay, now we can replace the track. This is one of the drains here, so you just constant steady pressure. Just let it come up, just like that. Just be careful not to damage your wood here. Just work your way all the way down. And there usually is a little sealant here, so you may have to slowly let that sealant tear, as you can see right there, and you can take it right on out. Now in the past, I was able to remove this without taking this off, but since this piece just floats here, I find it just easier just to take both of these parts off at the same time. And now you can replace this. Okay, when you get your new one, you can either put this back on there, or you can go ahead and snap this into place like that. Or, since you already cut it to fit, just slide it back on like the other one came off, just like that. And obviously when you replace this, we're going to go ahead and replace this sealant here. Since we got the track off, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to replace this whole jam liner up here along with this piece. And you may want to do that if a painter painted this and got paint in there. And if you get paint in this channel here, this piece here is not going to slide well, and your window is not going to slide well at all. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, first we have to remove this clad piece. Again, we can just use our putty knife here, and this should come off as well. It's friction fit, just like that. We can set it to the side. Now we can take off this jam liner. Sometimes you can just get it started by pulling on it here and then taking a flat bar of some sort or a putty knife and get it behind this jam liner and put constant steady pressure behind it and work your way all the way up. You can pull that out just like that. As you can see, there is a barb and a kerf that this goes into, so that's what we were trying to release off of there. Pull it just straight up, just like that. Get this jam liner out, kind of the same process as removing this one. So we'll go ahead and put our putty knife in here, get that started, like that. Constant steady pressure. Get it way in there. And just work your way all the way down. Okay, we can remove this piece of wood. Just like that. It is a friction fit. Okay, just wiggle it out. Just like that. You can leave this one in place. You don't have to take it out, but if you want to, you can. Now that you got your new parts, you can take the old ones out. Make sure you put them in the same way. Just like that. And what I would recommend at this time is taking some Pledge on a paper towel. Spray lots on a paper towel. And go ahead and wipe in this channel here all the way down. That's going to help this window slide a lot better. And also make sure you replace all the weather stripping and your dust block and everything else. Also, you're going to want to do this piece here. And that's if you replace it, or if you want to replace your jam liner, you still do the same thing. So we'll go ahead and put it back in reverse order. Okay, we'll go ahead and do it in reverse order. Slide it in there like that. These are pretty flexible. You do want to make sure that this is pushed in as far in as it'll go, because if this sits down a little bit, your window's not going to slide very well. Okay, just push that all in. Make sure this side's okay. If you have to, you can take a little hammer and pound that in. So we'll go ahead and put on this jam liner. We just need to make sure that this piece here goes behind this piece. And you may want to just pull this out a little bit to get that out of the way so it'll fit in there a little better. Down like that, and just push it in all the way. Okay, you may have to bend this a little bit. Just push it in there just like that. Okay, we can go ahead and put our wood piece back in here. As you can see, it just fits in there like that. Pop it in there. You can go ahead and put this piece back on. This piece here fits in here. Before we replace the track, be sure to put some sealant along here where you saw the original stuff. You can clean this off or just put it on top of there. And go ahead and make sure that this connecting barb that you see here goes in these two kerfs. Make sure that's seated. Hey, don't be afraid if you need to take a hammer. Now we can go ahead and put this piece back on. Put some fresh silicone in here, especially in these screw holes, because if you don't, water can get in there and you don't want it to get into your home. And make sure that this little hook here goes over this. We can go ahead and put this cover back in here. And it does sit at an angle like this. Okay, now we can put our sash back in. If you do have your bracket, go ahead and install it at the bottom. Okay, we can install the bracket at the top. Okay, we can put this head parting stop back in. This pops in there just like that. Okay, you can put this piece in. Sometimes I'll start this in first, just like that. And then I kind of just snap it in there, just like that. Okay, now we can put the bottom piece in, just like that. Before you put your active sash back in, I highly recommend, again, some Pledge on a paper towel. Use lots of it. Soak it into the paper towel. Wipe the top. Then these little pads here at the bottom. Now, if you have a sash that is very narrow and you slide it and it feels like it's teeter-tottering, you may want to take these pads here and move these to the end. It's relatively simple to do. Just get something to lift it up. This one's got some silicone under it, so you may want to replace that and then just move it towards the end here. And that'll make the sash a little more stable so it doesn't wobble. Okay, now we can go ahead and put our bottom sash in. Sit at the bottom, make sure it's past that, move that little clip like you saw earlier, just like that. One of the things about the glider screen, the screen is not meant to be slid. So if you're sliding this in your window, you're more than likely doing some damage to your exterior finish, and you don't want to do that. So just to be forewarned. With the screen, make sure these little pads are in this track here. Now, if you ever need to replace the weather stripping here, it's really easy on these gliders. Sometimes you can just take your fingers and you can just pull on it and you can get the weather stripping to come out. If you can't do that, then sometimes with the aid of a stiffened putty knife, you can get it behind here like this and just pull on it. So they use the kerf and barb system, as you can see here. It's friction fit, so if you just need your new weather stripping, cut it to fit, and then just make sure that that fits in there and just push it all in. And that's the same for all the weather stripping on this glider. Super simple to replace. Now I want to talk about reglazing. I know we tell you not to reglaze these windows, and there's usually a good reason why, but if you decide to go ahead and reglaze this, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, depending on what year you have of window, there was some design changes with this interlock here. So on this particular one, I believe this is our first generation. Some of these you may have a screw here, and you have to take those screws out, but always go from this side to take this off. Now you can roll it out this way. On the newer ones, you can just lift it straight up. But on this one, you can roll it out of there. I don't know if you can see how it's got that little hook there that goes behind this little lip here. So in order to take the clad off of this window, you're going to have to take this piece out here first. So usually you can just take like a screwdriver or something, and you can just gently, just constant steady pressure, pull this out. And be careful not to break it because you will have to reuse it. Just like that. Okay, now you can take this piece off. Now the bottom. We're going to go ahead and take our putty knife and cut this glazing tape here. Now that we're assured that all this tape is cut, start with the rails first instead of the stiles. And just put your putty knife between the wood and the clad. Be very careful, again, use all safety equipment because you can shatter your glass. Just gently between the glass. There you go, the clad comes off. Okay, you can remove these by doing this first. Get this out of the kerf, like that. And there's a little hook here. Not sure if you can see that. That's in the cut in that wood right there. So we're gonna have to try to roll that out of there. There you go, we got that out of there. Of course, we're trying to be real gentle here and not damage any of this wood. Not so lucky there. But when we replace these, we'll put some sealant along here when we pop those back on. I don't want to take this completely apart because this is our display, but all the rest of the clad parts come off the same way. And then what you would do is go ahead and flip it over and then take your putty knife between the glass and the wood and do the same thing. Just do several passes, use a rounded putty knife because you use a square one, it's going to dig in the wood. Go all the way around the whole perimeter. And once you do that, then you can clean off on the wood side here. I'll put an insert shot of what it looks like to clean that off. Clean off all that silicone, and you can use Dow 1199 in beige or Dow 791 in beige. Do a fresh bead, put your glass back in it, and you'll have all kinds of squeeze out. And then on this side, you can scrape off all this tape. You can get all that cleaned up and replace it with new glazing tape. Or if you don't have any glazing tape, if you have some black silicone, you can put a bead on that and put a fresh bead. Of course, we're pretending this is new glass and all this is cleaned up. And then you can just use silicone and squeeze that back on there. and then clean off all the excess silicone when you're done. Also, when putting your new glass in, be sure to reuse these, because when you use these around the whole perimeter of the glass, it helps keep the sash and the glass, it keeps everything square. So put that back in there, put some sealant along there, we'll pop this back on. Easier said than done, but we're nice and tight. Again, we're pretending, so I just wanted to show you how to disassemble this so you can take the glass out, of course. You can figure it out once you get it apart how it all goes back together, and make sure that it's all nice and tight. Okay, we've pretended that everything has all been replaced, and we're going to go ahead and put this back on. You may want to put some silicone in these corners, wherever water can get in, and this is friction fit. Just make sure all that's in place. It should be nice and flush. It should not sit proud at all. Okay, on this particular model, we have to kind of roll this in. We want to get this little lip behind this little lip here. Again, the model that you may have may not have that. And make sure that fits in there. Make sure it's nice and flush along here. And if any of these had the screws in here, go ahead and reinstall those screws. There you have it. That's how you reglaze a Ultimate Glider sash. Again, be sure to take a tape measure and measure your corners to make sure that the sash is square, because you don't want to install the glass when everything is out of square and your window won't work properly. Well, there you have it, the Marvin Ultimate Glider. And if you found this video informative, please consider subscribing to my channel by hitting the button below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.